I'd like to call the December 16th, 2014 regular meeting of the Pickle City School Board of Education to order. Now, people may notice tonight we're in a different venue because we're happy to say that we're in the Commons on the Spring Creek Elementary today. So we're pleased to be here. Hope you enjoy it. And Mr. Hill, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Patrizio.
Here.
Mr. Luby.
Here.
Mr. Gregerson.
Here.
Mrs. Webster.
Here.
Mr. Height.
Here. Please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to continue by reading our mission statement. The students, parents, staff, and community of the Pickle City School District accept the responsibility to provide our students with the best possible opportunities for the intellectual, moral, and physical development necessary to become responsible citizens. And again, that's the guiding statement that we use for any decision we reach. Moving along, you have in front of you the minutes from the November 20th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections that need to be made to the minutes? If not, can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, they'll be approved by unanimous consent. You also have the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? You've had a chance to review that as well. Any questions? If not, can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, that also will be approved by unanimous consent. Moving on to board reports. Legislative, Mr. Patrizio.
Thank you. There's several bills that have passed both the Senate and the House are in concurrence currently. One is House Bill 367, which requires a health curriculum for each school district on instruction regarding opioid prescription abuse and prevention. Another one is, and actually it's a fairly decent one in my mind, is it gives the school immunities if public entities use the premises for non-school purposes, and it allows the school district to have immunity if something happens to somebody during that time. The House has passed a bill at Senate Bill 96 that's going to require 1/2 unit of world history in the high school social studies curriculum, and actually I believe the Senate also has done that. Regarding House Bill 597, which is the Common Core legislation or repeal legislation that as of last week was being held up and was not voted on, and the OSBA believes that it may be voted on this week. That's what I have.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Patrizio?
Just a comment that in our board docs in the executive content, it's not up to date. It's back from August.
I just changed it.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Upper Valley Career Center report, Mr. Luby.
The Upper Valley Career Center Board of Education last met on Tuesday, December the 9th, and prior to the regular meeting, the Board of Education was treated to a wonderful meal served by the students in the food service program. It was delicious. I think Mr. Height can confirm that.
It was a very good meal. And there were 12 of us.
The fiscal reports and open vouchers for November were both approved by the Board of Education, and additionally, a purchase order was approved for security camera upgrades for the campus. Also, Dr. Robert Allen was approved as President Pro Tem to preside over the January 2015 organizational meeting until a board president is elected. Other business conducted was approval for membership with the Ohio School Board Association and the Ohio School Board Legal Assistance Fund. And then moving on with the meeting, the Board of Education accepted donations to the building and approved substitute employees and volunteers. The board then went into executive session to consider the compensation of a public employee. The Board of Education will next meet on Tuesday, January the 13th.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, moving along, I have nothing on hearing of the public on agenda items. Treasurer's report, please.
We've completed the second open enrollment for Pickle City Schools for this school year. And this had our new 4 options, health options. And I was going to go through briefly sort of the rundown where we're at. There were 9 family plans and 11 single plans for the PPO. We had the alternate PPO. We had 6 family plans and 3 single plans. We had 178 family plans on the HSA and 57 single plans, as well as 1 single plan who took the bronze level. And we had 50 people who waived taking health insurance. They had other health insurance provided by somewhere else. So when we look at that figure, we're looking at over 90%, close to 94% of our members switched to using the new HSA plan. So I think that was a good result from doing that. Looking at some of the numbers, because I know that there's been questions about how much savings was seen as a result of doing this. If everything comes to fruition, we haven't been billed by Anthem at this point, but by the numbers that I've created, we're looking at a savings of close to $700,000 by making this switch.
Is that for just this, for a 12-month period in 2015?
That's going over a 12-month period, yes, for the calendar year 2015.
I commend you and your staff. You obviously did a wonderful and very thorough job of explaining the HSA to get this kind of a sign up. That's really commendable.
Yeah, this is the culmination of 3 months worth of 5 meetings a month, trying to make sure that we disseminated the information as best as possible, and I think that participation rate shows. So we're excited about it, and this is what we were hoping for. We went through negotiations. This is one of those areas where we hope to provide savings to the district so that we can continue to give raises in the future. So I think it worked out well. Next thing would be the audit and CAPR update. The CAPR information has been turned in and completed. That stuff has been turned over to the auditor's office. The auditors also, we just finished going through that. And, Rick and I have some stuff to sign off on, and we'll get that sent off. So we're on schedule to have everything complete by the end of the calendar year. So we're on target for that. One thing that I wanted to mention, and nothing needs to be done on this unless somebody has an objection, but moving forward with refinancing our school bond for the junior high, we discussed a little bit about trying to do a rate lock and do something with that, and decided that was not in our best interest. So working with Fifth Third, who has done most of our debt issuance here at Pickle City Schools, they've given us a couple options to get the final maturity at December 1st of 2019 or December 1st of 2020. So what you have in front of you is just a little summary of what that looks like. And the next step is basically to let our bond counsel prepare something for you guys for the meeting in January to be able to authorize us to continue moving forward with refinancing the bonds.
Okay, are there any other questions on any of those topics? Okay, if not, proceed with the treasurer's agenda.
Are there any questions about the board reports that I have attached? This month is the alternate tax budget. This is where the board, I'm asking to go ahead and authorize the alternate tax budget that we've used in the past. And this allows us to continue collecting taxes, obviously, for the school district. Any questions about any of this?
Okay, if there's no questions, can we have a motion to approve the treasurer's agenda?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, Mr. Hiddle, please call the roll.
Mr. Luby,
Aye.
Mrs. Webster,
Aye.
Mr. Gregerson,
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio,
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye, motion carried. Moving along to the superintendent's report.
Item number one, Pickle City Schools Where Opportunity Matters is the new logo that we are rolling out with the banners on front of our tables tonight. Also, you'll find on the high school and junior high, we have the big banners up on the outside of those buildings, and we will be putting them on our 3 new buildings along with the windows throughout the district. This comes from work with research from our survey that was done at the end of May, along with working with other folks with input from an administrative team. Also, Allerton Hill did a great job of looking carefully at all of our documents over the past few years, and the word opportunity is what sets us apart from many other districts, and we've already talked about in our State of the Schools back in March about how Pickle City Schools in the northern Miami Valley offer more opportunities than any other school district. So we are going away from good schools, good value, and rolling out the Pickle City Schools Where Opportunity Matters, and you'll see that throughout the district on websites and so forth, and tonight is the first official rollout with that. Item number 2, just a congratulations to the staff at the new Spring Creek and also at the new Washington. They have done a great job of a soft opening. We were really originally scheduled to move into our new buildings after January the 5th, and we have, as of today, completed a student transition day on Friday for Spring Creek, a student transition day on Monday for Washington, and we have moved into both new buildings. Yesterday was the first day for the Spring Creek students and staff for all day. Today was the first day for Washington primary students and staff all day. And so huge congratulations, but also a huge thank you. Our professionalism on the part of our staff, on the part of the administrative team, really shined brightly throughout this whole period. If you've been driving by either of these buildings, either Spring Creek or Washington, you have seen many cars for many late hours, and they have done a phenomenal job of making sure that transition for our student body has been a smooth one. A thank you to the parents for adjusting to the new drop-off and loading zones, unloading zones, and reading signs such as energy efficient vehicle and small car, things that are out there for our buildings that you'll see in the parking lots, and everyone has been adjusting well. A special thank you to Teresa Anderson, principal here at Spring Creek, and also Minnie Gerhardt, principal at Washington. Those two professionals have done a phenomenal job of leading, also putting in many, many hours of getting the buildings ready. And after 3 years, I know I went home last Friday night and shared with my wife that the 3 years was well worth it when I saw the smiles on the Spring Creek students' faces. And the same thing happened yesterday with our students at Washington, because the students are really enjoying the buildings and getting accustomed and acquainted. The great thing by doing a soft opening, we will be able to start back after Christmas break on January 5th with business as normal, with everyone adjusted to the new buildings, and we will be back to regular learning mode. So look forward to that. Like I said, a huge thank you. Item number 3, building project update. If I could ask Kurt South, our business coordinator, to step to the podium to share where we're at.
As Mr. Haynes said, we've been moving into the new buildings, and I just want to echo those sentiments for staff and parents and community and everybody that assisted with that. We continue to track on schedule and on budget. We continue to have all the meetings that I speak about every month when I give this update. Most of those are now affecting or only include our intermediate building. We're not meeting weekly or daily on Washington Spring Creek since we're moved into them. We do have a core meeting this week with our representatives from the OSFC and from the architects, construction manager. Junior builders will pick up again in January, and then ongoing, as it says, is moving. So still boxes to unpack and that type of thing, but everything is going smoothly. At Spring Creek, of course, we had our dedication, and thanks to everybody that came for that. I think that was very well attended for both Washington and Spring Creek. And just a few of the boxes that have been moved from the old buildings into the new. At the intermediate building, we're moving right along on that one. Classrooms have paint on the wall and cabinetry going in, ceiling grid going in, and so we're making great progress there. Also, some of the food service equipment is being installed, the walk-in coolers, for example, here. And then also we're putting some of the tile floor in. These are the restroom areas that are getting tile floor. So a lot happening at the intermediate building. Again, another thank you to all of our contractors for Washington and Spring Creek and the intermediate, and all of those contractors that have worked with us all the way through the project and continue to work with us. And then just some upcoming events. Abatement and demolition of the old Spring Creek building. This is January, February, March timeframe. So after we get back the first of the year, abatement will start. That'll take 5 or 6 weeks, and then demolition will start. The building will come down after that. We also have a turn lane out here that will need to be bid, and construction that will take place starting in the spring and be done by August the 15th. And then as we've had some of our other buildings, the decommissioning, where we have open houses and things like that, those are in the works, and upcoming dates will be available here in the near future. And I welcome any questions that you might have.
Great job.
And what you've been doing in your spare time?
What's fair time? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 4, with the District Collaborative Leadership Team, 2 items on the agenda for that group. One is the belief statements continue to be working on, and we invite input to be continued to be given on that. Secondly, as we talked about last month, we did meet on November 18th as a group, and we went through the Ohio Improvement Plan process. Mr. Larson has been working with building principals and building teams on that process, and so we continue working on those 2 items. Any questions on collaborative leadership? Item number 5, math curriculum update. Mr. Shellhouse.
Good evening.
Hi.
Pretty brief report tonight. You've received my report that I submitted. Basically what we're doing right now is trying to make sure the progress is going with the math curriculum. And as I monitored where the different buildings are at, you notice there's kind of a broad range there, but we're still not probably progressing as quickly as I wanted to. We met with the intermediate principals today to kind of look at a game plan. We're going to meet with some of the intermediate math staff when we get back from break to kind of determine our plan of attack for the upcoming assessments. That's the big concern right now, because the assessments begin February 16th, and we want to make sure that we're giving our students the best possible opportunities there, but we don't want to abandon a curriculum just for the sake of testing either. So we're trying to make sure that we are going to do the best that we can to accommodate both of those scenarios. So that's kind of where we're at with the math program. Any questions?
Not a question, but a comment. After reading your report and then also reading the building administrator reports, I'm very disappointed in the lack of reporting and the progress monitoring for almost all of the buildings. I think perhaps the board can reiterate how important that is district-wide, and I don't know, perhaps have that included in the monthly reports from the building administrators, because it's not happening online for Dave to report to us. And we've invested time, money, and energy for this to be implemented, and I just want you to know the board is giving you full support, and we'd really like to see it from from the teaching staff and administrators. So really disappointed that the information hadn't been updated since October 1st for most of the buildings. We just did.
Item number 6, third grade reading update by Mr. Thompson.
Good evening. The test was given for the third grade OAA the first week of October, around October 2nd, and those results came in December. 58% of our students passed the fall OAA this year. That's up from 45% last year, and that is right just a little bit above our 5-year average. So we're seeing some growth in terms of the number of students that passed it on the first time around. This year, they get a 394 to 400 in order to be placed in fourth grade, or a 400 score or higher to be promoted to fourth grade. Currently, based on just the fall results in that first month of school, 75 students are currently retention candidates. We still have 2 NWEA assessments that will allow them to also be placed or promoted. And we have the spring OAA as well that will give students that opportunity to move on to fourth grade. Of that 75 number of students, a third of those are also IEP students who are getting some special intervention, as well as the students that are not on IEP. They're on what's called a reading improvement plan, and the parents receive letters in the mail explaining exactly where their student is in third grade in terms of the promotion or retention based on the third grade reading guarantee. So parents are currently up to date on that. House Bill 343 has been passed by the Senate. It's kind of in the works of the House right now, but that will, if it goes through and word on the street is a pretty good indication that it will, that will correct the problem that we reported on the last 2 board meetings regarding students passing the OAA and then going right into the park. We were concerned about if they passed the OAA, the old state requirement was they would move right on to the new assessment, the new park assessment, and that would not allow them to take the OAA a second time and get an improved score. So we were really concerned about those students not being able to do that. If this bill goes through, it will allow the students to just stay with the OAA for reading only. It'll allow them to grow and give us that better opportunity to show what our students can do in terms of the growth of they'll be learning in third grade. So excited about that. Just a quick note about what's happening with the pilot program out here at Spring Creek. I had a chance to see it in action here in the building, actually, and they were using the extended learning areas. They just jumped right in the very first day they were here doing the Kennedy model that we talked about. And Teresa Anderson, the principal here, has reported that at the beginning of the year, her first grade students, 44 of them had not been on track based on DIBELS, which is what we use to report to the state the on-track status. And at the end of doing our winter assessment, only 18 students remain not on track, and that is a significant growth. Many of those students also receiving intervention services from our IEP teachers. So she and her staff deserve a great kudos for that, and working really hard to get growth with our students. So I'm excited about that. Any questions?
What's the plan with the students that haven't passed?
They're all on the reading improvement plan,
Okay.
so they're receiving either extended learning opportunities during the day or looking at some things potentially after school after January. But they are working with those students, and it just depends on what their deficiency is. And that was also part of the letter that went home to the parents, kind of explaining where the student was and how close they were to making the growth and giving some pointers to parents, so that we can develop that partnership in terms of what we're doing at school as well as what the parents can do at home.
And the ones that pass, they don't have to take it again. That's correct.
They will.
They will?
They
yeah.
will, and the great thing about that is it'll allow us to show growth, because again, when they took it, it was only within the first month of school, but it was a third grade test. So we want to get that full year of teaching of third grade curriculum in before we really get that assessment and find out if our students are on track to third grade reading or not.
I'll add that if the student passes in the fall for some reason was not to pass it in spring, they still would have met that indicator. They would take the higher score.
So to add to that as well, even if they passed it, they're still getting additional supports. and we want them to continue to grow and maximize. You know, we don't want them to just pass the test, we want them to be the best readers possible in the fourth grade.
Were the initial results about what you expected, or were they better, or where did they fall on expectations?
It's about where we normally perform with students the first month of school. So, you know, last year we were really concerned, you know, we wanted better results last year than we got, but a lot of effort this year, right in the beginning. We went right to the students that we felt were very close based on the initial data that we collected, and we provided some after-school intervention, you know, with them to really give them that edge, and I really think that played a big role in helping us get to where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8, Odyssey Ware, if Mrs. Piper will step to the podium. Just a background on this. This is a pilot proposal that you did receive the PDF document about. Just a reminder, about 7 years ago, we started a second shift program at our high school, and the purpose of the second shift program was to provide additional opportunities for credit recovery. That evolved over the next couple of years into not only credit recovery, but also looking at providing course offerings that we did not offer at Pickle High School, or for students that couldn't fit certain things into their schedules because of band or show choir or advanced placement courses that were only offered one time. The singleton classes sometimes fill up quickly. Singleton as in they're only offered one period during the day. I apologize. And so basically, NovaNet is the software that we adopted 7 years ago, and we've been using that. And Kim is here to share the research that has gone into looking at a potential software update, which would be shifting completely to the new software, and the pilot project that we want to share with you tonight, and we'll probably be back in early January at the organizational meeting, if things go well, asking for your approval of a pilot program. So, Kim?
Thank you. Yes, the Odyssey Ware program, we actually received a grant for 25 licenses to pilot the program in the second semester. Our students will have the opportunity at the junior high and the high school to receive credit, and so that's why we're bringing it to the board. The pilot is new because, as Mr. Hinckley said, the NovaNet program that we've been using actually is going away. The company that supports that software is no longer going to support that program. They're changing to something called GradPoint. And so that prompted our team to do some research on whether or not that was the best program for us to continue with. And so the Odyssey Ware is another option for us. And so we're excited about that option. Many additional electives for our students. Also some opportunities for blended learning so that the teachers can utilize the tool in addition to the students doing independent work online. Again, in the pilot, we're going to target the credit recovery students. The students who are involved in our second shift program are ESL students. There is a language piece to this so that it can actually translate into their native language and also be instructing in English as well. There's some coursework in that. Students who are currently on home instruction. And then the additional item is that there's also an ACT prep course in the software as well, and we've been purchasing something separate from an additional company. So again, those would be, we'll be targeting students in those areas for the 25 licenses. So, really excited again about the pilot and excited about the results. So, any questions at this point?
Will there be any impact on the students that are in NovaNet now going over to this new program? Will they lose anything in the transition?
No, generally those students are in semester coursework, and so because we're changing at this semester, they're going to be able to just have a clean start.
Thanks, Kim. Item number 9 was the monthly enrollment charts. And if there are no other questions, that's the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, that was Mr. Thompson reported on that.
I will report on it. We have completed completed the staffing for this building to expand that pilot to all grades in this building, and we are in the works of doing a modified version for the other buildings in the district too, because you heard the results that we've seen, and Teresa has shared those results. So we're very excited to be expanding the pilot, and as we get back from break, that will encompass this whole building, all the students in this building.
How many new hires for this building?
One Title I teacher and 2 additional aides. Yep.
Great.
Under Superintendent's agenda, item number 1, recommend board approval of the attached list of equipment for disposal and removal from the inventory of Piqua City School District. And we have done everything to make sure that there is nothing in working order that we can reuse. Mr. Conley and Mr. Heidenreich have scavengered well. Item number 2, recommend board approval of the attached resolution awarding demolition contract for the Spring Creek School building. If you remember last month, I shared that we pulled that out of the contract for our general contractor and bid that out separately. And basically, if you look at the attachment, we do have a recommendation from Gil Bain, and that recommendation is for Rush James Contracting Incorporated, and the bid came in at $112,500 for the demolition of Spring Creek. And that resolution is for that. Also, we have to recommend board approval of the Piqua City School Indoor Environmental Quality Management Plan. This is something that has to be done for our partnership with the Ohio School Facility Commission. And you have the opportunity to take a look at that plan. Did anyone have any questions on that? Please note that the environmental quality manager is our business coordinator. He was recommended in that proposal. Item number 4, recommend board approval of the overnight trip for the Piqua High School varsity team to Caldwell High School in Caldwell, Ohio on January 23rd and 24th for the varsity dual wrestling invitational. This came to be because they were already approved for a wrestling tournament earlier this month for a weekend, and several of our wrestlers, actually quite a few of our wrestlers, had the flu, and so they did not travel, which opened up a spot for an invitational, and we appreciate Caldwell for providing that opportunity. So that's an overnight stay recommendation. That is at the cost of the athletic department and not out of the general fund. Recommend board approval of the attached list of grants and donations, which I greatly appreciate our staff members for applying for grants, and also the many people who do provide donations. We have Piqua Community Foundation to Piqua High School for the Student Gettysburg trip, which just occurred the Sunday after Thanksgiving and the first couple days of December. The students had a phenomenal time, and I know Mr. Patrizio has taken part in that in the past, and if any board members are interested in the future, I would greatly encourage you to go because it's a phenomenal trip. Piqua Community Foundation to Piqua High School Credit Recovery Program. Piqua Community Foundation to Bennett for the portable swing. Piqua Community Foundation to Piqua Junior High School for Chromebooks. Piqua Community Foundation to the Bennett for the walking field trip. Also under donations, you see several, because of the playoffs that we were able to host here at Piqua High School at Alexander Stadium. The golf team, the cross-country team, both benefited greatly by doing parking and also program sales for that event. And just a reminder to our public, we are always try to be extremely competitive in landing playoff games. Once again, we were able to host 4 playoff games, which provides a great economic impact to our community. We appreciate everyone involved with that. Also, an anonymous donation for High Street Christmas families. The National Energy Foundation to Wilder 4th grade. Westminster Church to High Street for school supplies. Tom and Brenda Hill for the show choir trip to Disney. It's happening on spring break. Greg and Kelly Gordon to the girls softball program. The Donnelly Advice Fund to Piqua Junior High School for the Washington, D.C. trip. And Charles Alexander to Nickling Learning Center. And a huge thank you to all of those people for grants and also donations. Also like to recommend board approval of the attached certified instructional salary schedule for instructional aides. As we mentioned, as we go into the pilot program, we are designating a special classification for instructional aides, and this is the salary schedule that those instructional aides will be hired under. And recommend board approval of the 2015-16 school calendar as developed by the district calendar committee. I greatly appreciate that committee that has been in action for a few weeks, and the final vote was yesterday. The calendar that we are recommending has basically school starting for students on August 24th. The Miami County Fair is August 20th is the last day, so we try to avoid the fair so our students who participate in that can continue doing that without conflict with school. Also, you'll notice we do have a 2-week Christmas break with this calendar, but spring break is a little bit different scheduled for next year. There is a break associated with Easter and Good Friday for a long weekend. There's also a long weekend associated with April, on April 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th, I believe. And so a little bit different calendar for us that the calendar committee proposed. There were 2 different options, and the staff took a vote on it. And again, I appreciate all of those people representing all of our buildings, classified staff, certified staff, who served on the calendar committee. And with that, okay, those are my recommendations.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the superintendent's consent agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Do we have any further discussion? If not, Mr. Hill, please call the roll.
Mr. Gregerson.
Aye.
Mr. Luby.
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster.
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay. Personnel consent agenda?
Recommend board approval of FMLA leave for Rebecca Garrett from her position as first grade teacher at Spring Creek Primary from January 5th, 2015 to approximately March 2nd, 2015. Recommend board approval of the civil service appointment of Regina Mancias as a TR1 bus driver effective January 5th, 2015. Recommend board approval of the civil service appointment of Adam Sees as a TR1 bus driver effective January 5th, 2015. Recommend board approval of the civil service appointment of Todd Wyan as a TR1 bus driver effective December 4th, 2014. Thank you to Mr. South, Mr. Montgomery, Mr. Ely was involved in that process. Hiring 3 bus drivers right now is very important. We're in a state where we really need more drivers. We are still looking for sub-drivers, so if you know of anyone who's interested, send them our way. But thank you for the folks who are involved in training the drivers and recruiting the new drivers. Recommend board approval of Courtney James Brown as a long-term substitute teacher at Pickle High School for the 2014-2015 school year. He will be filling in for our German class. He is a German teacher and, most importantly, a German speaker. So he will fill in indefinitely. Recommend board approval of the attached list of substitute teachers for the 2014-2015 school year. Recommend board approval of the attached list of supplementals for the 2014-2015 school year. Recommend board approval and thank you to the many volunteers that are attached for the 2014-2015 school year.
Okay, are there any other questions? If not, can we have a motion to approve the personnel consent agenda?
So moved.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Hill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Webster.
Aye.
Mr. Luby.
Aye.
Mr. Gregerson.
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio.
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, going on old business.
Under old business, asking the board for a final 3rd read and approval of the policies we've been working on for the last 3 months.
Are there any other questions on those new policies? If not, we have a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Hill, please call the roll.
Mr. Gregerson.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster.
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio.
Aye.
Mr. Luby.
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye, motion carried. We also have been discussing for several months the recommendation on the construction management services, the increase on the cost of that. You were able to negotiate that down considerably.
Correct. It's at $90,000.
Does anybody have any questions, Spencer? We've talked about it for a while.
No.
Okay, do we have a motion from the floor to approve that?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just for input, I have been in discussion with Gil Bain. We are looking at 2 payments. One will be sometime in January, February. The second will be at the end of the project, with about 50% for each payment.
If there's no further questions or discussion, have a motion and a second. Mr. Hiddle, please call the roll.
Mr. Luby.
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio.
Aye.
Mr. Gregerson.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster.
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye, motion carried. And then the last thing, again, is something we've looked at for a while, are the boundaries for the redistricting from Washington and Spring Creek. Are there any other questions about those boundaries? Could get much more equal to what they are.
And those have been posted on the front page of our website since the last board meeting, so the only input I've had from public is asking if we are going to allow for open enrollment, and based upon discussion from previous meetings, I've shared with people that because we have done everything to establish 2 very equal buildings, there will be no open enrollment for students from one building to the other.
Do we have a motion to approve the new boundaries?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Can I just make a comment, because there's going to be people in the Nicollet, Washington area, Washington Avenue areas that are going to say, why don't our kids go to Washington School? It's only a half a mile. They're going to Spring Creek. I think they need to be aware it's because we've divided the city east and west, and we've tried to divide it as evenly as possible. So that is why it's.
That's a good point to bring home to people. If there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Hiddle, please call the roll.
Mr. Gregerson.
Aye.
Mr. Luby.
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster.
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye, motion carried. Okay, the other things we have today, we do have to look at reorganization for the, in January. With the help of Mr. Patrizio, we
Very good.
Aren't you not claiming it?
No, I will claim it, but I did not have the input into it.
got before you, basically, since the personnel on the board has not changed, everybody agreed to remain in their current committees. Mrs. Webster will be, as has been suggested, as president. Mr. Patrizio will be vice president. Meeting dates will be again the 4th Thursday with 2 exceptions. November 19th and December 15th. We thought with Thanksgiving and Christmas, that's probably a good move. There don't seem to be any other conflicts any place in the calendar. Something we looked at too was the possibility of, well, the organizational meeting. We need to look at that. We were looking at either January 6th, 7th, or 8th, or 4 o'clock at the board office. Is there a preference? People?
6 would be better for me.
Does the 6th work for?
6th is okay.
Okay. And 4 o'clock at the board office. That work all right? Okay. We looked at, and this maybe is an issue, an item open for discussion. We looked at the possibility of rotating board meetings. And what we're here at Spring Creek tonight. We thought the January meeting would be appropriate to have in the Washington building. And then we went through an alternating schedule through there. What's the thought on the process on that? And the new intermediate would come in August.
Greatly appreciate the board looking at holding meetings in buildings, because I think we will be able to bring student celebrations and academic celebrations, and also offer tours of buildings, and also some showcasing and programming even before board meetings for people who might be interested in coming a little bit earlier.
Is the notification of getting the schedule out to people, is this going to be, how big a change is that going to be?
What I'll do is, now that I have this list, what I'll do is work before the organizational meeting and look carefully at what's going on at these buildings that's on the calendar. If there are some adjustments, I'll let you know.
Okay. And of course, work sessions, then either we would schedule those either preceding a regular meeting,
Correct.
or at the board office if we needed to at a different time.
Correct.
And the only other thing, do you need the dates for the 4 Thursdays would be?
I can put those on.
Okay.
For the organization meeting.
The only other thing we need is we do need a president pro tem for the organizational meeting. Mr. Luby, as the closest past president, would you be willing to do that again?
You can negotiate that.
No, it has to be voted on this evening.
I'm pretty reasonable.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, then, given that, do we have a motion to accept the recommendation for the board reorganization for January?
I move that the organizational meeting for the 2015 year be held at 4 p.m. on January 6th at the Board of Education office, and then Bob Luby serve as president pro tem.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and then further discussion. Mr. Luby? He's good to go. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Hiddle, please call the roll.
Mrs. Webster.
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio.
Aye.
Mr. Gregerson.
Aye.
Mr. Luby.
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye, motion carried. Calendar committee update?
Item number 2, under new business, now that we have approved the 15-16 calendar, I'm happy to share that the committee will continue working in the month of January and February, and we hope by about March or April, we will have a recommendation for you for the 2016-2017 school year. Being under a 3-year contract, and also with the construction project coming to an end in August, basically, we feel we should be able to have a calendar ready to go for 16-17. So I appreciate the committee work on that.
I have nothing on hearing of the public on non-agenda items. We do need to have an executive session tonight for the purpose of appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of employee, student, and/or school official, and evaluation of the superintendent, and for the purpose of consideration of lease and/or sale of property as permitted under Ohio Revised Code 121.22, and we will not be taking any action when we come out of that executive session. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, Mr. Hiddle, please call the roll.
Mr. Gregerson.
Aye.
Mr. Luby.
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster.
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you all for being here tonight and enjoying our new venue.